pay transparency, many firms have been slow to act. What's behind firms' reluctance?
You need to equip your managers to explain why transparency matters. It's about trust. It's about connecting with our company values.
Many firms' rewards messages might need some decoding as well.
Right now, we know that there's a big understanding gap. Leaders have to align on what does transparency mean here and be able to champion that themselves.
Pay transparently or pay later. Hi, I'm Jill Wiltfong, Chief Marketing Officer for Korn Ferry, and this is Briefings, our deep dive into topics that corporate leaders need to care about. Have you ever had someone ask what you make? What do you say? Well, if that question makes you freeze up, you're not alone. Despite a plethora of pay transparency laws that require firms to list salary ranges when job posting, many firms have been slow to act. In fact, less than a third of U.S. companies are compliant with them, and in some European countries, it's even less. But pay experts say avoiding transparency is the absolute wrong way to go about things. As experts explain it, legal compliance aside, transparency can actually be a key to building trust. And trust is the backbone of company culture, something which executives attribute to 30% or more of their firm's market value. So if pay transparency is so good for both the workplace and the bottom line, why are so many firms still stalling? And what can they do to get moving? Let's find out as we discuss why firms today can either pay transparently or pay later. Before we start, if you're watching us on YouTube, please be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a comment to let us know your thoughts on this topic. I'm joined now by Tom McMullen, the leader of Korn Ferry's North America Total Rewards practice. Tom works closely with many top company leaders on how to best upgrade their reward strategies to include pay transparency. So it's great to get his thoughts on this. Tom, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, hi, Jill. Great to be with you.
So Tom, let's first try and understand why most companies still haven't adopted a pay transparency policy. What's behind firms' reluctance to move forward on this issue?
Leaders aren't necessarily aligned. They may support pay transparency in principle, but disagree on tactics, details, and timing. And then a big issue is around manager capability. Many managers that oversee people lack the training, tools, and confidence to discuss pay equity confidently with their employees. So I think those organizations that move forward successfully aren't those with perfect systems, but they're the ones with the courage to start a process, to communicate honestly, and to improve continuously.
You have observed that many employers say the reward programs are not ready for public view. What's the main difference between a company that's ready to take that step and one that's not? Are you seeing some consistencies there?
I think some of these key differentiators are having a clear philosophy, intent, and leaders aligned around that intent, that they can explain, the how and why people are paid as they are, and that is a consistent message across the organization. Good data underpinnings are a part of that, really having market-based data to support how jobs are leveled, how people are paid, how promotions work is really important.
I'm going to tell you a story now. No, I'm good. It's short. Really, I'm fine.
That's a scene from the movie Bullet Train where Hiroyuki Sanada tries to tell Brad Pitt a story. And Tom, you've said that one of the most important steps in communicating pay transparency to your workforce is getting your story right. But our data actually shows that 45% of companies report their managers aren't skilled at delivering pay messages, which is something you've talked about a little bit too. What is a good example of a good story versus a not so good story?
Yeah, I think good stories start with the why. So when you're describing the what, why are we doing this? Why are we being transparent as an organization? You need to equip your managers to explain why transparency matters. It's about fairness. It's about trust. It's about connecting with our company values, not just what the pay ranges are. That's easy, but it's really getting at the stuff behind that.
One of the questions I imagine comes up or could come up is this concern potentially about the competition. What do you say to leaders who might have concerns there? For example, they might think if I share salary ranges, that might help competitors to poach talent. They'll suddenly have insight into kind of how we're organized here. What do you say in that situation?
Yeah, we do hear some of that. I would say, look, the market data is pretty much already public, right? So your competitors pretty much have access to pay data through salary surveys. Job postings are becoming more transparent as more states come online with pay transparency. They're a great analytic tool. So sharing our pay ranges really doesn't expose something significant that a lot of competitors don't already have.
If you could leave our viewers with one insight about why pay transparency matters, not just for compliance, but for building stronger organizations, what would it be?
There's some pretty compelling data out there, fresh data, that shows that applicants are likely to not apply to an organization who is not transparent in their pay programs. So if one company's posting their ranges and the other company is not, and the one company is posting other attributes of their pay program and the other is not, you're not going to get the size of the applicant pool that you were hoping to get. I'd say the bottom line is that pay transparency is a direct indicator of credibility, maturity, trust, and professionalism in an organization and how that company treats its employees. And ultimately, I think it's a barometer of whether an organization treats their people as a cost or an investment.
Compliance may be the organizing framework that's getting us all surrounding this, but it sounds like to me you see this as just tremendous opportunity. Tom, really good to have you on today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jill. Pleasure.
We've talked through some of the nuts and bolts of how companies can address pay transparency. When we return, we'll talk to a culture expert on the deeper implications transparency has for company culture. Stay with us.
Hi, and welcome to This Week in Leadership. I'm Rupak Bhattacharya, and here's a quick look at what else is happening in business.
A data center houses rows of computers and equipment for storing, processing, and transmitting data.
Over the next 5 years, analysts project about 20,000 data centers will be constructed globally to help power the AI revolution, with spending on them reaching $1.8 trillion by 2030. But will all of these data centers be needed? Experts say savvy leaders and investors are starting to anticipate a possible correction looming in the future.
Cottage cheese sales are up.
Cottage cheese is back. Sales are up 20% year over year, following a 17% boost in 2023. As retailers scramble to figure out how to manage this increased demand, one common strategy is to increase prices. But the real challenge is figuring out whether this cottage cheese trend is temporary or here to stay.
There's a lot going on right now in AI policy.
Nearly 60% of US workers surveyed admit to using AI in unapproved ways, though many blame their firm's unclear AI policies for that. Experts suggest leaders get creative with AI policy communication, for instance by building it into training programs or sending out test emails similar to those used to simulate phishing scams. For more insights from This Week in Leadership, head to kornferry.com/insights. Now back to Jill and our episode.
What do you do for a living? I'm a software engineer. How much are you making in the role?
We've been talking about companies' hesitancy around pay transparency, and joining me now to share her take on the culture side of this equation is Corinne Randall, a Korn Ferry associate client partner in our culture, change, and communications practice. She's advised leaders extensively on the impact pay transparency can have on a company's workforce. Corinne, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, of course.
So that last clip we just saw was from social media influencer Hannah Williams, whose channel, Salary Transparent Street, features her asking people how much they make. Corinne, that kind of openness around pay still seems to be a difficult step for the corporate world to take. It certainly feels unfamiliar to me, but you've said it's critical for furthering a company culture that employees are energized to show up for. Elaborate on that a little bit for me.
Pay transparency is absolutely culture in disguise. We know it's not just about numbers, it's about trust. When employees understand how pay decisions are made, they can feel respected and valued. Right now, we know that there's a big understanding gap. Employees at 61% of organizations don't understand their firm's reward strategy, which erodes trust and engagement. A transparent, defensible pay story closes that gap and helps reinforce the culture that we want.
You have also said that enabling managers to have really constructive conversations around pay is actually what's really key to transformation. So let's take the example of an employee who walks into the manager's office upset because they see the person in the cubicle next to them making, 30% more. How should a manager handle or prepare for that type of situation?
When we coach managers, we always invite them to start by validating that concern with empathy. Then we want to make sure that they can really clarify the process. They need to be able to talk about how we evaluate roles, how we determine pay, how we balance competitiveness with the market and internal equity. They need to be able to call out where employees can influence their rewards by building skills, by sustaining performance, or taking on new responsibilities and really amplifying their impact.
What is that? Is that a new symbol? I can't tell.
That's a scene from the movie Arrival, where a group of scientists tries to decode an alien message. And it seems many firms' rewards messages might need some decoding as well. Our data shows that nearly a third of companies lack a clear total rewards message. Corinne, as a communications expert, what do you see companies getting wrong when that happens, and how can they fix that?
One, they have to have a good story to tell. That looks like really a clear philosophy, great guiding principles, but it also has to come to life in the decisions that leaders are actually making inside of that framework. Then we want to make sure we're telling the story well, starting at the top. Leaders have to align on what does transparency mean here and be able to champion that themselves. Then, as we've been talking about, it's critical to empower managers as the storytellers. So that leads us to our final point. We have to tell the story often and evolve it over time. We have to treat total rewards more like a campaign, not a one-time announcement, so that we're listening, evolving as our employee values shift, and reinforce what makes our organization really stand out.
Of course, many companies are taking a wait-and-see approach to implementing pay transparency policies. So to the CEO or rewards leader who is currently standing on the sidelines, what would you say is the risk of waiting too long?
This risk is not regulatory, it's reputational. Transparency is already here. Ranges are visible on job boards. Employees are talking about it with their colleagues and friends. If your frameworks and messaging aren't ready, candidates and employees are going to write a story for you, and it can cost you talent. Compliance is absolutely what our baseline is, but credibility has to be our target. That's what fuels our culture. That's where leaders can really build trust, reduce risk, and turn transparency into a talent advantage.
Corinne, thank you. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing how pay transparency will change the workplace in what seems like pretty significant ways. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Jill. It was great to be here.
The executive producer of Briefings is Jonathan Dahl. Today's episode was produced by Rupak Bhattacharya and Zachary Dorr. And it was edited by Jaron Henry McRae. It contains reporting by Russell Perlman, Ariane Cohen, and Peter Loria. Our video segment contains original artwork by Fraser Milton, Haley Kennel, Jonathan Pink, and Sasha Kotschik. Don't forget to read our magazine, available at newsstands and at kornferry.com/briefings. That's it for Korn Ferry Briefings. I'm Jill Wiltfong. See you next time.
Perception of poor pay is the top people. Oh, I'm just not going to get that one today, Jill. We'll find a different one.